Hey everybody, Tom here with Hidden Beats, and today we are talking with Darryl James of Close Kicks and the Strumbellas. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing marvelous today. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's gonna be fun getting to learn a little bit about you, your music, and kind of what you're doing in the world these days. But for those who are new, can you give a little kind of intro about yourself?
Yes, I can. So I'm like an original member, founding member of the Strumbellas, and that started in like '08, '09. It was my first band, first
Okay.
time playing bass. Weird, right? I get
Yeah.
yelled at by our drummer all the time because he played in like 20 bands, and that was my first band to find success in. So he's pretty ticked at me for that. But so that was sort of my journey. It was like a new musical endeavor for me, and never thought that my life would turn out to be a full-time job in the Strumbellas. And then once we kind of got some success in the Strumbellas, that's a dynamic writing music with six people and performing. It's a beast in itself, a very positive emotional beast, but
Mhm.
it just allowed me then to go, you know what, I'm going to explore other worlds of creativity and how I can take the skills I used in the Strumbellas and be like, how can I apply this in other ways? So that's kind of how Close Kicks started, and kind of where the name came from of Close Kicks, like a good pair of sneakers, is kind of like the idea of like collaborating with someone else that you just meet. Say you write a song, or you just put some piece of art together. You like literally didn't know that person before that day. Like you didn't, and all of a sudden, 3, 4 hours later, you have this like piece of art that now could do something in the world that is could just be so incredible. And it's just this bond that's created, and it's like a lifelong bond. So that's just something that I fell in love with as I started to explore the world outside of the Strumbellas, and then wanted to sort of like use Close Kicks as a feature or as an avenue to showcase those artists or the songs I wrote with them or how they collaborated with me.
No, and it definitely sounds like it's been a bit of a fun endeavor for you for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Do you remember early on when you were first getting into music, maybe like a first album that you bought that was like that golden ticket for you of like, damn, this is what I'm gonna do?
um I wouldn't, honestly, like I would sort of like kind of go back to like the early days of like listening to music. Like my mom was such a huge music fan, and just was like kind of constantly playing music in the house, like always like the oldies, on weekend mornings or after school. And it just really, like, I just fell in love with just like music in general. So I think there's lots of records over the days from like I had a hip hop phase in my early teens, and was like, with working with DJs and got turntables and bought records. But I also got into like, Zeppelin and Sonic Youth, and then also like, bridged into the Canadian sort of alternative world with Our Lady Peace and I Mother Earth. So I kind of, and even to this day, like I just love all types of music. Like as long as it's like good music that catches my ear, it can be hip hop to jazz to rock to anything. Like it's just incredible. So I wouldn't say particular an album, but I would say my mom was like just sort of that guiding light to get music into my inner core, and
Mhm.
explore every form of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way actually. Well, so I kind of brought up with the country vibe because that's what
Nice.
my grandparents listened to. Like they call it whiskey jack music, and then my mom would listen to country in the car, doing car road trips, whatever. But then I transitioned to, classic rock and just a
Yep.
bit of everything. So I'm the same as you in the sense if it's a good song and it catches me, then I'm totally into it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so crazy. I also got into this. It was really funny. My sister reminded me. It's this like old sort of Christian reggae Christmas record, like I forget, Boney something. I'm forgetting the name now. I should know because it's like my favorite record. But it was just this weird Christmas album that had this like sort of like pop undertone, and I don't even know where I found it or where it came from. But it was just like really good melodically. I don't really even listen to the lyrics or love the lyrics of anything that they're saying, but like it's funny like how I was always in the same as what you're saying, just drawn to something that caught my ear, that made me feel good, that made me feel connected to the melody and to the sound. And then obviously, as you got older, the lyrics became even more relevant and more important. you know.
Hmm. Do you have like, so other than that album, do you have like a guilty pleasure song that you put on your playlist every so often, and it's just that one that's always kind of in rotate for you?
Uh, I wouldn't say I think at this stage of my life, like I went to New Orleans a couple of years ago and became like obsessed with New Orleans jazz.
Okay.
So I think I went to Preservation Hall. We were in New Orleans for 4 nights. We went every single night. We waited in line. And I honestly, right now, like when I'm just like in any mode, whether I'm cooking dinner or just sort of vibing out, I'll just throw on like a jazz record, a New Orleans jazz record from Preservation Hall, and just like sort of vibe out. It's kind of non rock and roll, maybe in some way, but it's just like, the musicianship and the way that, like, to see them live really made me connect with them, because they just like the presence and the performance and the tone and the feel is just like at another level. So it's just, I don't know, right now that's probably my guilty pleasures, is diving into that.
Nice. It sounds fun. I like that question because it gives me other ideas to start adding to like my playlist. And if I want to listen to something interesting, because there's so many things out there, you miss stuff every day.
Oh, absolutely. It's insane. Like I feel like almost every day someone will tell me about a band I have no idea who they are and never heard of them, and I'm like, how is this even possible? Like how can I not know, half of the bands people say? And it's just like it's kind of weird, but also just like amazing in the climate we're in, that there's so much great music that you can be exposed to so easily. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I found one recently was it's like a he's a composer or something out of Germany, but he mixes like classic music like Bach and everything like that with like operatic ballad type of feel to it. Now there's one song he has, it's on my playlist all the time, and I'm just listening to it regularly.
Oh dude, that's sick. That sounds amazing. You gotta send me the name of that.
Yeah, I'll look it up, and I'll definitely send over that, because it's just one of those songs that caught me, and I was like, damn, like where did this come from? Like out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's like the sort of like, that's everything with music, right? When it's like, and I've learned over the years of like playing in the band and feeling, it's like it's your gut. Like when your gut tells you that something feels right and it's just right to you, it's like that's right. Doesn't matter what anyone says or how they feel, or if it's different than you. If it makes you feel good and it hits you in a certain spot, then that's amazing. And I really did personally learn that with my EP with Close Kicks I just put out, called Colors. It was like I really did that on my own, and I had to trust my gut. And it just really sort of solidified that idea of all my music, everything I listen to, everything I do really has that gut feel.
So when you were putting that one together, how did the your process work on Colors versus doing something with the Strumbellas? I imagine it's like a completely night and day situation doing it by yourself versus with the group of the guys.
Yeah, well, I think, overall I've learned like a lot in the Strumbellas, like how to write and create a song and doing it as a group. So I took a lot of that. What I kind of always do is I write a lot of like melodies on my phone. I just like pick up the guitar or the piano, and I'm just always kind of like messing with a chorus or a verse idea or a lyrical combination, and then I'll start to go back and just kind of dig in and be like, oh, I like that melody. Okay. Oh, that's a great line or a great verse. And maybe I'll try to connect the two, like a verse and a chorus, or that'll all be in the voice memo that I can pull. So that's kind of what I did with this EP, is I just went digging around, and like the lead single was a little different, like Never Gonna Give This Up. That chorus I had written, that line I had written, but that verse I could not figure out for the life of me. It just took me like months. I kind of tried all these different ideas and then was frustrated and like let it sit for like 2 months and came back to it and listened to the different ideas I had, and it was like, oh, there's one right there. I totally didn't even remember writing it, but it's there. So that's pretty similar to the Strumbellas. And then, I'm fortunate enough that I like write, I kind of writing other music and writing with other writers. I've learned to produce my own stuff and songs that I write with other people. So I just kind of produced everything on my own and laid out this sort of vibe that I wanted. And then I found some local players. I live in a town called Lindsay, Ontario.
Okay.
And I found some local, really great vocalists, instrumentalists, and went to a local studio in Peterborough, and basically was like, listen, here's the sessions, here's my ideas. you put your feel and color and fills, and I sort of sat there and would, help guide them, or, oh, I love that idea, let's embellish that sort of thing. And that's how it got supported. And then I mixed it all on my own. So it really was like I had a lot of weight on my shoulders to sort of take on all the responsibilities. But once they laid down their tracks and their parts, it just sort of, made the EP really colorful, and maybe hence the name
Hmm.
Color.
Yeah, actually, I played hockey in Lindsay once upon a time, and I did a whole bunch
Nice.
of stuff. Like my grandparents are from Wilberforce, which is the other side of Bancroft.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so I'm down around that area fairly frequently.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. No, it's a great region, man. It's I lived in the city a lot of years, and then when the Strumbellas started getting pretty busy, I came back, and just to be around family. And there's just such a like a supportive, fun artist community here that I'm really trying to be engaged in. There's a great local theater here called the Academy Theater, and there's just so much talent. So it's really nice to embrace it and promote it.
Hmm. Now, how do you think your music personally has evolved over the years, starting from in the Strumbellas and then working into your solo stuff?
Sorry, say that again?
How do you think your music has evolved over the years? Like, I mean, you probably start out a certain way, but then learning tricks as you go.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, I sort of always lean towards the acoustic guitar. I think it's just like my comfort zone. And I think, you know, some of the guitars and stuff that got added to this EP like gave it a nice like rock feel, which I was really excited about because I didn't really envision that. But I think, I think it rings true between the Strumbellas and for me personally is like I really like to find ways to explore my sounds and melodies every single time. Like I want to get out of my comfort zone, and I want it to feel like a little different, and I want it to push the sound, and I want it to just, yeah, just constantly be evolving. And I think, when you listen to my first EP Dreamers, I had a hip hop song on it. I had some big co-writes, like kind of like almost like radio friendly singles. And then this one I went a little more like indie rock and explored that world. So I think I'm just going to constantly push the sound and push the boundaries, particularly in Close Kicks. I think this is a project that allows me to just kind of go wherever my gut says I should go, and I'm just going to take it there and just have fun with it.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot more openness, I guess, for you in that because it is a solo project. You can do whatever you want with it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I really love. Like I think, with the Strumbella success, we're exploring the world, but we're also respecting what we've done and where we've been and our fans and all those things. For this, I'm not touring Close Kicks as much because I have to, respect my time in the band, and that's the priority. And I would hate to be like that guy that's like, oh yeah, I'll do a show for you. And then a Strumbella's gig comes up and I'm like, hey, that commitment I gave to you, that, because in the early days as you're doing a lot of shows at low cost or for free, and the band is sort of my day job, so I have to make that priority. So most of what I'm doing with Close Kicks is online, or I can do interviews like this, or if the opportunity for a charity show works, in an off time or while I'm on the road, I'm more than happy to do it. um, so this really is like an avenue of like releasing music online and being creative as possible. And hopefully that's the way I find fans is through that sort of creativity and exploration.
How has the fan interaction been with you about Close Kicks?
Honestly, great, man. Like it's really, really, really crazy because like, for instance, I had this one kid, my daughter figure skates, and he's a young boy that figure skates, and he wanted to use my one song, The House We Built, as his like song to do his routine on. And had been doing it, and it was like blew my mind. It was like, oh my god, he's like asking me, can I use your, and I was like, absolutely, man. Like, can I
Hmm.
video you doing this? Like, can I like share it all over social? So I was it's like one of those things where, in the band, we got tons of that as well. And
Hmm.
it's like very like heartfelt and amazing. And it's like, but there's six of us creating all that. And so you're connect, but for Close Kicks, like this is very much me. Like these are songs that, I've written with one other person, or I produced the whole thing, or like with the colors, I did everything. And
Hmm.
when people are finding a connection to that, it's like you can't even the feeling is like unbelievable, and it just really just yeah, it just warms your heart and just like inspires you to keep going.
I would imagine too, it's probably reliving a bit of the feeling you got with Strumbellas being early on and people being like, "Oh my God, I love this," and then now you get it again, now fresh and say, "Hey, this is again something new that feeling coming to me now."
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. It's like it's definitely like addicting. There's no question.
Yeah. Is there any like fun stories that you have of being on the road and maybe even weird fan experiences or anything like that?
Oh man, there feels like there's just always a thousand of those. I would probably say the weirdest story for me in Strumbellas was, man, I think it was like in like it would have been in maybe 2015. We were had grown success in Canada,
Hmm.
and we were trying to get into States. We hadn't released Spirits at that time, which was obviously like our biggest single. We went into the US and we were like just going down, like trying to play shows. We didn't have an agent, so our Canadian agent was like helping us book shows. So we ended up at this one show in somewhere in like Texas. I think it was like outside of Dallas in this like strip mall. And there was literally, so we play the show. There was about four people watching, and two of them are actually just playing like the PlayStation that was for some
Oh,
reason in the bar.
yeah.
So, and then one guy had a, short pair of shorts on, cowboy boots, and just dancing like in his own world, like in front of us, like the only person dancing in front of us. Like, so it was like, a little bit of a demoralizing show. Like, we all kind of, I'm like, what are we doing like with our lives? So I'm like loading gear out of the venue and putting it in the van. And as I turn around, there's two girls, like one girl like almost backs out of her spot and almost like backs into this girl walking by her.
Oh
And they
wow.
start chirping at each other. And then next thing you know, the girl's out of the car and the fists are being thrown. And I'm standing right there like, well, like I guess I like what do I do here? So I just kind of went in between and like pushed them apart. And I was like, not a good idea. How about let's not do this right now. Like let's like this not needed. No
Mhm.
one got hurt. Let's just move on, sort of thing. And that I think that's one of the many countless stories probably within the Strumbellas. But I think what it proved to me is the highs and lows of being in a band. There are days where when Spirits went huge and we're playing Jimmy Kimmel and at the Grammys and then you have days like that where you're just like in a parking lot wondering why you're doing what you're doing. But it's all those little moments and all those little experiences that really make being in a band special or creating music special. And it is really about the long haul. Like that's kind of what I'm in this for with Close Kicks too. Like you know there are certain songs I have put out and didn't get the response I thought they deserved, and it's hard. But I think what I learned from the Strumbellas is sticking with it is the key. Keep working at it, keep going, keep building relationships, keep being positive, and eventually things will happen. And so that's what I'm going to do with this as well.
And a story like that is exactly what a lot of up and coming artists are looking to hear. Like I've actually heard many people want to know kind of the pathway and the road that someone like yourself has gone on and
Yeah.
kind of get that, it sucks sometimes, but keep going and it can still work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And another piece of advice, if anyone is listening, is you always like we had so many moments in the Strumbellas where it was like, okay, this is the show. This is people are going to see us. This is going to be the break we need. And it never was that one thing that was the break. It was all of them that made us who we were. It was every single one of those things we thought was going to do it. It just made us that much closer to becoming a better band because we prepared and we rehearsed and we wrote more music and we made better contacts at that show. And then we went to the next one and we did it again and then again and again. So, you know, don't get down on the one show not being the one. That is always all every show and everything you do is contributing to that goal, and getting out there and playing live and building relationships and writing and creating and continue to create is that's the job, and that's what's you have to be in love with and want to continue to do.
For sure. I think that's going to be a note that a lot of people want to take away from this, especially because I do something like 200 interviews a year now, and a lot of up and coming musicians, and they're kind of in that place where it's like, is this next one going to be it? Is this next one going to be it? Or how's that
Yeah,
working? So I think it'll be nice for them to hear kind of one of the vets saying, and keep going and keep your head down and do some good work.
absolutely, absolutely, wholeheartedly.
Now, you've been at this a little bit now. One of the fun questions I'd like to ask, and I think your perspective might be interesting, is what's one thing you think should be asked more in an interview that's not asked enough?
Um, you know what, to be honest, I wouldn't even say I would say some of the best interviews is when, you can tell that they've read, you made, whether it's your press release or they know something about you. Do you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like, it's like, wow, you're kind of blown away, where they're like, wow, how'd you know that particular piece of information about me? And it's like, you actually, you know, I can tell you did your homework. You're not just asking sort of like the random hockey question sort of thing. You've asked some amazing questions today, and I really appreciate your experience and time you put into it. So I think, like, to me, that's so important, is being able to explore a world that's like, and tell people about who you are and the depth of who you are, not just like the surfacey question. Because I think a lot of, in the success of the Strumbellas, when you got into the mainstream world, there was a lot of, like, interviews where they really didn't know who you were or what you were about, or like, a lot of people were like, wow, like, how'd you guys get success so fast? And you're like, that wasn't fast. That was like 8 or 9 years of us grinding it out. Sure,
Mm-hmm.
this song is new, but the band isn't new. So yeah, I think, honestly, like, being able to be in an interview where people are engaged in what you do and have done some research on what you're doing is like, it's super, super fun.
And quite honestly, like, we've gone off my notes completely at this point. We've started gone to different topics and things like that, but
Sweet.
I think it's fun because it is more engaging having like an actual conversation. Like, I get to learn more about you this way and pick questions out of my mind and things like that. So it's fun to do these
Absolutely.
type of interviews.
Absolutely.
Mhm. So one of the other, and there's cookie cutter questions. I like this one's a bit of a cookie cutter one. What's is there any artists out there now in the music scene that you think people should be watching out for?
Oh man. Yeah, that is a fantastic question. Yes, there's one of my favorite Canadian artists is Jeremy Volts,
Okay.
who's out of Toronto. He's phenomenal. An artist out of Edmonton, named Martin Kerr. He's another Canadian artist that I'm just a huge fan of. Um, oh man, Rebecca Lapa is an Edmonton artist that I've fallen in love with as well. Um, you know, Man, there's just like, you know, the CBC is like such a great sort of resource for Canadian content and music. So, following anything on the CBC, I think, is just like good exploration. Um, but yeah, I think early on, those are some of my favorite artists. One other, a lot of West Coaster, JJ Shiplet as
Yeah.
well, is an incredible artist out of Calgary, Canadian artist that I think everyone should check out.
Yeah, we've actually like I've talked to JJ before and I've heard a few of those names, but I like that because like I said before, I miss artists. I don't know everyone around there, so you might be listening to something different that I'm not. So it's something for my radar to check out for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you got any recommendations for me?
Geez, now you're putting me on the spot here. I'll have to think of some off the top of my head, but who did I just interview recently? Oh, Jessica Sevier was a new one that I just dropped an interview with. She's got some fun stuff that she's working on, and
Okay,
it's
sweet.
and she's got this a really unique sound to her actually. So it was kind of interesting to hear some of her stuff.
Amazing. Amazing. I'll check her out for
Mhm.
sure.
Now, one of the most important questions I think of any musician, any interview is why do you still do music? What keeps you motivated to walk this path?
Um, you know, I feel, because I started in music later, like I was 30 years old when I started the Strumbellas, and like I said, being my first band. Um, I'm in my 40s, early 40s now, 44 exactly. writing and releasing music. So I really feel fortunate that, you know, my life took a turn in this direction that I would have never dreamed possible. Like I would have never thought at 30 years old. I was kind of in like turf grass management. I was like working on golf courses, and I was an arborist. I was doing tree work and irrigation work. And I was like, never thought that my life would turn to becoming like a full-time artist in a band that has international success and releasing music. So I just feel like I've been blessed with an opportunity. I love the hustle. I love the work ethic. So I just am like, while I'm here and I have this opportunity, like I'm going to take the most advantage of it that I can. And I'm going to just collaborate and connect and write and record and learn and mix. And I'm just going to take every piece and avenue within this industry. Now I love the business side of this industry too. Like it's insanely complex and interesting about labels and publishing and record royalties and radio play and syncs and all of this.
Mhm.
It's just like insane, the industry on the business level. So I'm just taking it all in and enjoying every day, and feel fortunate that my life got to go in this direction, and I'm not going to waste it away in any way. I'm going to take full advantage.
For sure. I think you're one of the only people I've ever heard say they actually are interested in the business side of things. Everyone's like, let the team do that and I'll just keep doing this.
Yeah. No, I'm always asking my manager and agents and looking at show settlements and merch. And, I think that was like also when I joined the Strumbellas, being a bass player, never played in first band. My strength in those early days, like we were a big band, so I didn't have to play like complicated bass parts and stuff, but
Mhm.
I knew business. I had started my own business beforehand. And that was something I took a lot of pride in the band in the early days, is I kept track of the money
Okay.
and the shows and helped us get grants and filling out the grants. And then obviously as we got a team of people in place, they took that on more, but it's always been ingrained in me to like, see how the business progress and how things have changed, and everything as you gain success, where the different revenues are coming from. And it's still very hard for me to fully understand, but it's definitely I think it is an asset for young artists to, you don't have to know all of it, but you shouldn't also be like ignorant or like
Mhm.
ignore all of it. You should have a sense of, you know what you're doing, how much you're making, is it profitable, is it not profitable, and what adjustments that can be made, to help along the way. So yeah, no, thanks for recognizing that. It's definitely something I take a lot of pride in.
Yeah, it's a lot. And you're not just an artist these days, you're a business because of all these things. And you have to, even if you're not the one doing it, you have to understand kind of what's going on. So you're not left
Yeah,
in the lurch for sure.
absolutely. And like it's a new world with like DSPs, and there's a lot more independent artists that are breaking on like TikTok or Instagram, and finding ways to be successful. And I think there is a whole new sort of uh, wealth of up and coming artists that really do know how to manage all those sides, because you can have successful career now without a label
Hmm.
and without the big radio guns. You can do well on different media platforms and streaming that you couldn't do 15 years ago. So the more you understand that side of the business, the more opportunities you have to do it in your own way, in a way that the way you want to do it, without any sort of label control. Or that's cool too. Being with a label and everything's really awesome, but it's just also like it's just a different beast than what it is to do it entirely on your own and being entirely creative on your own.
Yeah, I think it has its pros and cons for sure. But if you learn to both sides of things, it'll definitely be more advantageous for you for sure.
No question.
So, kind of the last point I have, and I think this one is, what do you hope people are taking away from Close Kicks and the music that you're making on your solo venture?
Well, I think this one, particularly on this EP, I sort of explore like, my mental health and the idea of like, you know, um, like my one song, Somewhere Lost, is sort of going in the idea that, being lost is like kind of sometimes part of life. And I think I've learned that with age as I manage my mental health, is like, you try to like, you want to understand everything or be able to fix everything, but sometimes that's not always possible. And sometimes you're just going to be a bit lost, and that's all right. Like, and so there's that sort of world that I'm exploring in the EP. And then there's the world of like, my lead single, Never Gonna Give This Up, is really, I have a couple kids and live in a small town community. And I just really believe in wanting to try to make the world better for my kids in whatever way I can. And I'm never going to give up that sort of fight. And I sort of take shade at myself in that single. Like, in the first verse, I say, I'm living life so dangerously. It's not dangerous to sort of stand up for what you believe in, but it is intimidating when you go to stand up for these things that you think are important, or think are important for your children or your family, and you might stand by yourself. Like, there might be people that don't want to stand up with you, and you might think they will, but when push comes to shove and those tough moments come along, they're just not there. So it really is just like, it's this world of like, okay, like, how do I manage my mental health, but how do I persevere in standing up for the things I believe in, and feeling good about doing that, and not being scared to do that. And I think that's what I've really been able to explore in this EP. And it's, I'm really proud of what I was able to sort of write and talk about. And hopefully people can sort of, connect with those messages in the EP.
I mean, I think they will. I was listening to it before, and I can hear some of the stories and some of the feelings and stuff behind it. So I think it's gonna do well, and you're gonna see some extra fans come out of this one for sure.
Beauty. It's the goal, man.
That's all I have written down here. Is there any kind of final words of wisdom you'd like to leave to listeners new and old?
Oh man, yeah, thanks. Well, thank you, Tom, for having me. This was just such a pleasure to chat. So fun. Thanks for asking some great questions. And any leaving advice I think I sort of touched on is like, for any of those creatives out there, like, just keep at it. Just keep writing. Even when you think you have a writer's block, just keep writing. Just keep going, because one piece of advice that I got is like, you know, you sometimes you get writer's block and you're like, okay, I'm just going to take a break. But many of the ideas come from just continuing to create and continuing to do things. And maybe you're not writing the melody, maybe you're just writing lyrics, or you're doing something else that's creative, but sticking with it and not giving up, things will happen in the long run. You will begin to find success, but it really doesn't happen overnight. You got to stick with it.
Nice. I think that's a great way. We'll leave it at that for this one. And I had a pleasure talking to you. I got to learn a lot more about you, which is great. And you made a fan out of me for your music for sure. So we're gonna keep an eye on stuff coming up, and hopefully we'll get to have another conversation again.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tom, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you enjoy the rest of your day. We'll make sure we link everything so people can find the EP, find you, like listen to all your music, and make sure they get the full effect.
Oh man, that's amazing. And yeah, let me know, and I'll be spreading the word as well. This was such a fantastic interview, so thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day. It should be pretty nice out, so get outside and have some fun.
Will do, man.
All right, catch you next time.
All right, thanks, Tom.